It's 8 years since the afternoon Rachel Howe's daughter Rosie failed to call as planned.
I rang her phone and one of the ambulance crew answered her phone and said, "We're with your daughter, we're working on her now." She'd come out of work and collapsed.
Rosie had suffered a heart attack, but what had caused it was the sudden collapse of both her lungs, a bilateral pneumothorax. Her brain was starved of oxygen, and 2 days later it was made clear she would not survive. Rosie was 18.
Her lungs were just a massive holes and blisters called blebs, and the bilateral pneumothorax, they were just scratching their heads. They had never, usually that happens in like a car accident or, you know, something where an impact has driven the lungs down.
There was no post-mortem, no official link made. But Rachel is convinced it's because she'd begun vaping heavily 6 months earlier. She'd even been to the doctors repeatedly with chest pain, but as a fit and active footballer, it was put down to a pulled muscle.
I was finding bottles and bottles of the empty liquid. She constantly had it in her mouth, and I kept saying to her, you know, you wouldn't smoke that much, why are you vaping that much?
Since then, the number of times vaping has been cited as a cause for serious illness in boys and girls has soared. Figures obtained by Sky News reveal that in the year to April 2021, there were 11 cases where children and young adults aged 19 or under were admitted to hospital, either directly due to vaping or with the practice cited as a factor. 2 of those were no older than 9. But the following year, that figure almost trebled to 32, with 12 boys and girls in the younger age bracket. And in the past year, the numbers rose again, with a total of 40 cases, 15 aged just 9 or younger. For many smokers, vaping has been the key to quitting what is the biggest preventable cause of death. But for paediatric chest physician Professor Andy Bush, there's too much that is still unknown, especially for young people who shouldn't be smoking or vaping.
If a teenager starts smoking cigarettes, probably the worst that's going to happen to them is they're going to be sick and throw up behind the bike shed and not look very clever. The acute use of e-cigarettes can put them in hospital, can put them in intensive care. Things like lung bleeding, lung collapse and air leak, the lungs filling up with fat. There are a large number of diseases that have been described as a result of the acute ingestion of vaping.
Rosie liked the way vapes smelt, the fact they didn't yellow her fingers, and the price. But her mum says she was becoming more and more addicted. She'd first started using the devices aged 17.
Now, it's pretty clear on here these are not for under 18s, and in fact it's illegal to sell vapes to children. But when you open the boxes, what hits you first off is real fruity smells, and then you can see the bright colours. This one even looks like a lip gloss. So you can understand why they appeal to young people, and they cost about £5 each.
There's the added danger that some counterfeit vapes are contaminated or have very high levels of nicotine. The government recently announced it would be clamping down on rogue firms unlawfully targeting teens. Illicit vape enforcement squads are also being set up at a cost of £3 million to uncover the traders selling to young people. It's a welcome step, according to the UK Vaping Industry Association, which describes the current level of enforcement as woeful. It wants to see £10,000 fines for those selling to young people. But it also points out that 76,000 people die from smoking each year in the UK, whereas there's not a single confirmed report of a death from vaping. Professor Bush needs no convincing that Rachel's theory is correct about what led to Rosie's death.
I think that mother is right. I think that mother is right. I cannot think of any other explanation that would cover the facts.
It's powerful validation for a mother who has made it her mission to tell her daughter's story to any young people she sees vaping.
It's just strange to think the world and she's not in it. I forget sometimes that she's not in it. But I just want people to know this isn't as safe as you're being told. It's really not, and we need some more research into it, we do.
The impact of vaping on young lungs is only just emerging. But what is clear is that there's too much at stake to ignore the risks. Emma Birchley, Sky News.